with Ten Hag, given he's been at Ajax this season, and I think most people would consider that Manchester United far bigger club, brand, budget than Ajax in terms of what they're able to do financially. Why didn't Manchester United do this in November rather than getting an interim manager in for 6 or 7 months, which is ultimately actually going to cost them even more money because they're not going to be in the Champions League next season in all likelihood? Why didn't they just go and pay for Ten Hag? Is it because, they were at that stage looking more closely at Mauricio Pochettino? Had they even considered managers before sacking Solskjaer?
A great question, and one which I don't have a definitive answer to. Clearly, they were all in for a period of time on Solskjaer, and it became untenable. But they were invested in him. He was fundamental in the recruitment decision-making process, and they'd handed him a new contract not so long previously. But the moment that he started coming under severe pressure, the word among contacts who you speak to who are quite close to United or inside United was that it was an interim appointment until the end of the season, and they will address the permanent manager in the summer. So for whatever reason, they were very clear in their mind of which route they would go down. It then became a recruitment process for the interim manager. In terms of Ten Hag specifically, he's been a manager that they've admired for quite some months, clearly, with the likes of Pochettino, Julen Lopetegui, Luis Enrique, and maybe a couple of others. But I think Ten Hag had given his commitment to Ajax for one more season after speaking to Tottenham last summer. Did he sign a new deal with a release clause in it that meant for him and his future, this was always going to come to a head in the summer of 2022. Would he stay longer? Would he leave? Would he strike some sort of agreement with the club to maybe take over in the summer of 2023? Because there are other major clubs who have been looking at him and like him a lot. Pochettino was not going to be easy to get out of PSG at that particular time. It seemed that United flirted with that. There were some conversations reportedly, but at Paris Saint-Germain, Champions League campaign, I never thought that was likely to change mid-season so early in his tenure there. And so I think it was more logical. You could say a club of Manchester United's size and stature and stealth should be going in there and taking the best manager in the world at that point in time. But I think that's quite halcyon and hypothetical. And I do think that the summer was always more logical. And I don't think their recruitment process has been bad from the outside. In late January, we reported that it was going to get started in the coming weeks. It did. In late February, we reported that the process had started. They were making contact with representatives of the candidates to set up interviews and meetings. Those meetings and interviews started happening in March. By the end of March, early April, they wanted to know the direction of travel. Again, we reported that. They wanted to basically have a decision on who they were going to go for. At that time, Erik Ten Hag emerged as the preferred candidate, even though Mauricio Pochettino seemed to be the apple of their eye for a few years. And now they've carried through a pretty swift sort of step-by-step process to reach an agreement and then now get it done within the next week in pretty good time for the transfer window and next season. So whether the appointment is right or not, and the timing of it, should it have been when Solskjaer was sacked? Should Solskjaer have ever been given that new contract? Should Solskjaer have ever been in the job full stop? I don't think they have conducted the worst process to get to this point.
I think one of the very key things in there is that nothing has been confirmed and nothing's going to be said until the KNVB Cup final, which is on the 17th, because very much that is one of the key objectives for Ajax. So under Ten Hag, he's won 2 league titles, but also 2 doubles. It possibly could have been 3 if it wasn't for the COVID-impacted 1920 season that was sort of kiboshed, despite the fact Ajax were running away with it. And I think, and again, this is outside looking in with my very bad less than conversational Dutch trying to make sense of everything. I think this is what has happened here is Ten Hag's perhaps noble ambition to win what he can with Ajax and ride off into the sunset, has caused this sort of staggered announcement that we're seeing right now. I think Ten Hag possibly wants to win this cup final on Easter Sunday, then focus on securing a third Eredivisie title, which looks like more and more likely. There was a point, I'd say 2 or 3 weeks ago, where it looked as if there was a possible title race, but it looks to be swinging more in Ajax's direction. And I think we're probably going to get some announcements and some further conversation after the cup final, where hopefully he's got one bit of silverware in his cabinet and said, right, now I've done that and we've got this many games left of the season, I am departing XYZ, 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 XYZ.
It will also be very useful for if the announcement comes next week for Man United, because they're going to Anfield next week and they'll probably get battered. And then they go to Arsenal, and that might also be difficult. And you could have a situation where the fans' anniversary of the Super League, everyone's a bit grumpy. A new announcement gives hope. It sort of pops that balloon for a week or so and calms things down to a certain extent. I'm sure there still will be, songs sung and some form of protest over the next few weeks, but it would definitely be useful public relations, I think, for Manchester United to get this announcement out sooner rather than later.
And get it signed. You would have thought, David, as big clubs start to fall out of Europe.
Yeah, I don't think that Ten Hag is now going to go elsewhere himself. There were reports of RB Leipzig, and we know Ajax wanted to keep him, and there would have been big money on offer for him to do so. But yeah, they do need to get it signed, of course, just to rubber stamp it. And then you're right. At one point last night, I thought our Manchester United going to turn to Carlo Ancelotti when Florentino Perez boots him out unceremoniously post-defeat by Chelsea, having squandered a first leg lead. He's probably now going to get a new contract, knowing the fluctuations there. And, Bayern Munich are out. Julian Nagelsmann, a manager that's admired by many clubs in the Premier League. What are they going to do about him? But United, their train has left the platform and it's going to the destination of Ten Hag.